So the intention of this class is earthquake preparedness. And when I talk to individuals, they typically say, well, there's nothing you can really do for an earthquake. And that's actually, from what I've found in research, is quite wrong, that there's a lot you can do for an earthquake. And so you can feel calm and be as centered as possible through an emergency in a disaster situation. So the fact that you're here is phenomenal, because when you're prepared and calm, we have more prepared and calm people throughout the community. And when you're in a centered place through an emergency, you're able to help others. When the whole community in spots is unprepared, then it's much more chaotic and less resources. And so the fact that you're here, ready to learn, means you're going to be able to take care of yourself, your family, and your community. Because in a mass disaster, your neighbors are your first responders. Okay, so we're going to talk about the organization of how this class is going to go. So we're going to talk about pre-earthquake, what you can do before the event, which is actually critical and makes all the difference in the world. All the difference in the world. And then we're going to talk about what you can do during an earthquake, which you probably will you've heard in school, and you're here again. And then during the earthquake, your natural man instinct, survival tendencies will kick in, and you'll be fine. And that'll be the information you need, and it'll come to your mind as needed. And then we're going to talk post-earthquake, and that there's some key things to do and not to do that, again, make all the difference in the world. At the end of that, we're going to talk about the products to have so that you can sustain yourself. So those who have come to my other classes, there are some things that are repetitive. There are some products I have continued to recommend, and then there's a few new. And if you need to slip out at that time, that is an okay. If you need to, go for it. Because if you've already heard it, you don't need to repeat what you don't need. So we'll go over then the products to have to sustain the necessities of life when our current necessities are not here. And then at the end, I will talk about some notes that I have read and learned from journals that I've gathered through Katrina, Ike, Harvey, and other natural disasters. So more hands-on, practical, what's happening these days. And then I have a bunch of resources over here. At the end of class, I'll invite you to go over, and it's like shop for what you need. Do you need information on how to build a 72-hour kit? Do you have someone with a disability, hearing aid? Do you need to know how to turn off your utilities safely? And you can just pick up what you need to make your own preparedness packet and then have it on hand. So, there is a packet. Oh, good. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So, in Washington, we are actually in a beautiful, beautiful, as you know, scenic place of the world. But it's happened because of natural disasters. That is why we have such beautiful mountains. And we have the ocean and beautiful lakes, which can bring in tsunamis. And a lot of different things which have contributed to our beauty of the Northwest. And so it's a different take to see the earth in that way. Instead of being afraid of natural disasters, fearful of earthquakes, fearful of all that could happen, seeing that it has happened, and it's created diversity and beauty, and knowing that it will happen again. And then with this class, we're going to specifically talk about an earthquake because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So all local and national geologists, scientists, seismologists have said it's just a matter of when a major earthquake will come to this region. And this is why. We've got a fault line right here off the Pacific Ocean. And the scenario is that a major earthquake will occur off the coast here up the west. Now, looking at this key with the colors, the lightest shade is the magnitude of an earthquake that would wake you up from your sleep. So if you think hypothetically, these people would get woken up, shaken, know that the earthquake happened. These people will probably have things fall off their shelves. These people will have major shaking and injuries. These people will have For sure, structural damage, road damage, bridges, injuries, probably casualties. These people will have major catastrophe, casualties, road, structural damage, and everything they predict pretty much off of I-5
Gone.
is pretty much gone. That the infrastructure would be so damaged that it would literally take decades to rebuild. And that is not an exaggeration. It's the reality. It's not, what we're talking about here is not doomsday scenarios. This is what the science has said, and this is what the government and the national federal emergency programs and agencies have said. So if you look at where we are, we're in a major zone here. This is earthquake territory, and this is catastrophic earthquake territory. So we need to have this information and this knowledge spread out our region. If we are prepared, we don't have to fear. When it comes, and we handle it as it comes. But we're prepared. Major schools down here in Portland are literally trying to change their campuses because they know there will be total annihilation of school districts along the coast here. And they're striving for money to move inward. There are major hospitals that are actually trying to move and rebuild campuses so that they're in a safer infrastructure and not so close to catastrophic damage when an earthquake comes.
I'm curious, you look at that and you see I-5 is at the running
It's like the line. It's like that we drew the line.
How did they know?
And so it is ironic.
Yeah, it's ironic.
It is. And
That
so
changed
this,
405 though, which has always been a problem. And it actually improved 405.
Yeah, well, the construction will continue forever again.
it will be an ongoing process at
Yeah.
that point. And so, this is just the reality of what most likely will happen. So when in this class, I'm not gonna say if, I'm gonna say when. Because if we have in our minds when this earthquake happens, we literally are accessing different points in our brain. And we are in a capacity to think, this is a reality, what can I do to be prepared and manage? And take action and be a positive effect for yourself, your family, and easily the community around. Welcome. Actually, these handouts will be for later, so if you want to set those down, that'd be great. And then Sherry, would you mind helping those who come in late? Would you mind giving them a handout? Thank you. So glad you're all here. Find a seat wherever you'd like. Thank you. So, for those who just came in, I'm going to just briefly reiterate what we just said, is that it's not a matter of when, and not a matter of if an earthquake comes to Washington and in our area, it's a matter of when. And we lie along the most critical zone that will be hit very intensely with a major earthquake that's predicted to come under 50 years. And there are different takes on that. So it could be in your lifetime or it could be in your grandchildren's lifetime. But either way, this is my other point I like to make in every class. If you are prepared to do these things, you are ready. And if it doesn't happen, so what? You pass on that information to your children. You pass on that information to your community. And we just become a more prepared people down the line. You can look around right now and you can see we are not a very self-sufficient community in Western America. We rely very much on technology. And if and when the infrastructure changes, it will be an eye-opening experience for so many people if they don't know that this is a possibility and a very realistic reality at some point down the line. Our population, especially, as you guys know, in Bellevue, is booming. The infrastructure, the roads. Think about all of those literally crumbling and all of those people unprepared. And how vital it is that we're prepared and then we can share it as we can, as we come across. So, thank you for being here and being willing to be one of those prepared individuals. Okay, Even recently, again, the government has warned us. When this comes, we cannot say we have not been warned. All government agencies have warned us. Just recently, they did a worldwide shakeout drill where we practiced in October what happens when a real earthquake happens. Over 56 million people participated, and in Washington, 1.2 million participated. And I have noticed over the years, the words coming from our, like this is government emergency agency for response, they have changed. It used to be just get a 72-hour kit, and then it used to be have a week's worth of food. Now what they are saying everywhere and on all websites is have at least 2 weeks to prepare. At least 2 weeks of you being on your own. When events like this happen, the government will not be there. They will not come to your rescue. The government will not knock on your door. When you call 911, it'll be overcrowded. You won't probably get through the phone lines, and the reality of them making it through roads is not happening. We need to take care of our own health, well-being, and safety. It's like our doctors. We expect them at times to take care of our health when really it's our responsibility. So taking care of preparedness in emergency situations is not the government's job, it's our job. And they have warned us, fair and square. So before an earthquake comes, there are so many things we can do. So again, I'm gonna refer to a lot of in your handouts. In the home, what you're gonna do is have a home hazard hunt. And I have the website of that in your handout. You will go throughout your home with new eyes. And you will look around and you will see your home as if it was going to go through an earthquake. What needs to be done? You take at least 30 minutes to an hour to get this done. This can change your whole reality during an earthquake. First thing I would highly recommend, if your home was built before 1980, check to make sure you are secured to the foundation. Before 1980, builders were not required to bolt your home to a foundation. They did, lots of times they did, but it was not a requirement. So check to make sure that was happened. If not, you need to do what's called retrofitting your home. And that would be the most expensive preparedness task, but it will save your home. It will save your home from literally sliding off your foundation and crumbling. So instead of losing a home entirely, your home will be bolted down, and it'll probably be between $2,000 to $6,000. It's pricey, of course, but it's an investment. And these kinds of investments you are doing now, it's like a life insurance for a living. We pay life insurance for sickness, for our home, or for when we're dying, but this is for living. And so it's wise investments to make. And so making sure your home is bolted down.
How would you find that out?
You would talk to your contractor and see, and call the city. The city has resources on this too.
Okay.
So you can
Contractor's
Google.
long gone.
Yeah, so then retrofitting, how to retrofit my home in
Well, I mean,
Bellevue,
how to
Washington.
find out if it's bolted.
If it is bolted,
Yeah.
I would look at any mortgage documents, if you have any blueprints, and if not, contact the city, because the city should
City should
have
know.
those information, that information.
So you just call the city now, city home is flooded.
And ask, yeah. I had a number for that, so I will find that again, because I did not write that number down. But the city can give you information on that. And then now, going forward, if you are in the market for buying down the road, then that's something you wanna look into. Mobile homes, they will crumble in an earthquake. They slide off the foundation. There is retrofitting you can do for mobile homes that will hold it down. But that's first thing, hands down, I recommend you do. The next thing is your water heater. If it is not secured, it needs to get secured, because that's like a bomb in your home with the gas or a possible flood. And so in here, again, I will have resources on how to make sure it is secured and how to secure it it's not. Okay, I'll show it later. And then you're gonna look through heavy objects on top of the high furniture in a bookcase. What needs to be fastened down? Literally, if you think the earth is gonna swell and roll. So it's literally gonna be jolting up and down, up and down. You can look at online a simulation of an earthquake and watch people actually like get thrown back and forth. And that's what's gonna happen to your home, to your hanging wall pieces. Don't have anything over your headboard where you sleep. Make sure it is a clear space over your kids' places where they sleep. And then make sure you have shoes, old pair of running shoes underneath your bed, near the kids' bed. Because when that happens, if it's during the night, which is 50%-ish of where we are during the day, then you need to have shoes to put on to assess the damage, and most likely broken glass and windows will be there. So shoes under the bed is easy to do. And then having documents, having your documents zip-locked, and having them in your 72-hour kit, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But having a location of where you're gonna go, an evacuation route, contacts, in-state and out-of-state, okay? And out-of-state calls will be easier to make because local cell towers will be overloaded. Odds are they could survive. They're wired pretty hard for actually like nuclear disasters. They're wired pretty intensely, but odds are they'll be overloaded. So having out-of-state contacts written down, okay? Having your evacuation plan from work, from school, from wherever you commonly travel. Looking and assessing your life, where's the majority I spend most of my time? How would I get home? How would I reach these loved ones? How would I reach friends? Realistically thinking and internalizing that. Talking with your neighbors. In an emergency situation when the professionals will not be coming, your neighbors are your #1 responders. You will be going and checking on them. They will be coming and checking on you. Getting to know each other, knowing skill sets. Tina is in my neighborhood and she is a fabulous coordinator of community events and getting people talking with one another. So we know faces that we can know, oh, he used to work as a paramedic, and so on and so forth. Having a 72-hour kit is essential. It is something that you should have no matter what. And it's having the essentials in a backpack that you can keep in your car and you can keep in your home, and if you need to evacuate, you have it and you go. And so, for us, my husband commutes far, so I make sure he has one in his home. He doesn't have one in his office because he rotates offices, but he has one in his car and he never carpools. So his car will be outside of wherever he is at. For me, I have a smaller one in my home, but a bigger one in my car because I have 4 little kids, and if I'm home, my car is home. And so I can access that. And if I'm out, I need more supplies to take care of 4 little beings until we make it home. So realizing where you are and what's the reality. Again, when, if this happens, where will I be? Thinking about special considerations. Do you have babies? Do you have kids? Do you have elderly? Pets? Things like that, life-saving devices. I have a lot of those specific needs printed over here that we can get at the end of class. So I'm not going to go over all of them right now. So that is some of the before things that makes all the difference in the world if you do. And then, 1 minute. Oh, it got close. I'm sorry. Oh, this is it. In Secure Your Space is this website. And what it does is it walks you step by step. After you do your hunt in your home and make your changes, what you can do to protect your chemicals, to make sure falling glass, your water heater, kitchen cabinets, everything, what you can do to secure it for an earthquake and for any other natural disaster as well. So this is a fantastic website with all of it here, and you have it in your worksheet, okay? All right. So, one of my hopes is while you're at this class is you make the determination now to go home and do something, to go home and do these things. If you have this class and it's a great experience and you felt wonderful, you got the handouts and you go home and you just set them down, the odds of picking them up again are pretty slim. We get busy, we have things we need to get done now, but I have found in my life, the things that need to get done will get done. You'll eventually get dinner, your dishes will eventually get done. The things we should do, I need to do those first, or else they don't get done. So committing and making an internal commitment to do these things will make all the difference when you go home and actually acting out what you came here to do. Okay, so this is securing the space. And we'll talk about products at the end, about water heater fastening kit, quake hold putty, and the online guide is fantastic. We briefly talked about what you do for making a plan. Who is your out-of-state contact? Where will you meet? Alternative roads or paths from home. I have some documents over there. If you don't know how to do that, grab one of those documents and have that in your kit so you know how to do that and you go home and you do that. Do you have road maps in your car? We won't have GPS. Do you know how to go from work, from childcare to home without GPS? And with roads are dangerous and impassable, do you have another alternative? 72-hour kit, like I said, is essential. There's many different kits you can buy. I recommend one in our pages here, and that website is fantastic. It has different options, and a lot of the things we'll talk about here, a lot of their kits offer it. So you can do kind of an all-in-one deal with this company that I have found. Other things besides what initially you'll find in a 72-hour kit, food, water, basic first aid kits, and emergency blankets, and heaters, and gloves, rope, things like that will be all in a basic 72-hour kit. And if you want to make your own, I have a website here in ready.gov of building a kit. Another few things that I have found that aren't in those lists is putting in your contact cards, putting in your documents, cash. You have to have cash. Smaller 20 bills and less. Have it in a Ziploc and put it in there because that's when you'll barter. And if you need to get home from work, you can pay people to help. If you can't just do a Good Samaritan exchange, which I hope you'll be able to do at that point, you have money to exchange. Money will still be worth a lot to people after a big earthquake. It will still be a value. So having $100 in small bills can make a huge difference. And then you can share it with others who need it as well. Diapers. If you have kids, wet wipes, putting those in Ziplocs, everything in Ziplocs. So if it's water damage or anything, it's all protected. And you can use those Ziplocs for so many things in an emergency. Ziplocs are heaven sent. They're fantastic in emergency. Pacifier for kids. Also for kids, sorry, I forgot to bring it. A carrier. You can get a cheap one of these at any garage sale or thrift store. This is a nicer brand, but you can get a cheap one for $10. If you have an infant or someone who will not be able to walk, put one of these in your car. Think about if I'm at the grocery store, which is 2 miles away from my house, but I have 4 kids, I have an 8-month-old, my arms are gonna be exhausted. So having this, I keep this in the car, and I use it all the time when I don't plan on using it. But then, for an emergency, this will make all the difference. So having that for sure in a car for anyone who has kids. And then in your 72-hour kit, crayons or cars. In Katrina, one of the things that people noted the most was how stir-crazy the kids got. The kids got insane. Think about it. We're at home on a rainy day and kids get insane. Think of, oh no, you're not going to be starting. Think of an emergency situation. Oh, did I do that?
Yeah.
Greg, would you help me? A little extra. Honestly, doctors are more willing these days seeing what's going on. Condoms. That's something, honestly, if it's applicable, you don't really think of it down the line. But that's a good thing to have in your 72-hour kit. And that's all I can think of on the top of my head, and we'll see when this comes up. So, another thing, when you order a 72-hour kit, lots of times it can come in this bag. It likes to be red, looks like an emergency kit. But think about carrying this for 12 miles home from work. Your back and your arms, and you're hiking, and maybe you're climbing, and you'll be exhausted. Think about getting more of a hiking backpack that has waist support straps. What a difference that will make in hiking and walking from home, or from school, or from work. So I highly recommend you change your backpack if you get one that comes like this. Okay, during an earthquake, I'm gonna have you turn and look at this attached picture in your handout. We're gonna briefly go over this so that you have it in your mind, you know what to do. So, the earth starts shaking, and what you first do is drop, cover, and hold. That's kind of been the standard for the United States and will kind of still be the standard for probably a little while to come. If you are indoors, you drop to your hands and knees, you cover your head and your neck down. You're covering your vital organs, okay? And you hold on to something sturdy. If there's a desk, if there's a table, you get down underneath the table, hold on with one hand, and cover with the other hand. Again, you want to stay as closest to the floor as possible. This floor is going to be throwing you up and rocking you. If you're running, trying to get somewhere, think about it. I'm going to be thrown down, broken bones, broken injuries. Versus if I just get down, go down to the earth, and then crawl if I need to. Then, if I do fall, it's much less damaging. Thank you for being patient with my restarting computer. If you're in bed, again, 50% of the time where you're at, make sure nothing, no hanging lights, fans, windows, mirrors over you. If you're right under a window, think about maybe repositioning your bed. But what you're going to do is you're going to turn over, lie face down, put the blanket, the pillow over your head to protect you. Dale.
I heard that it is even better to just drop right next to the bed,
Yes.
because the bed may offer some protection from things falling down, and you're being right next to the bed, it may offer a little bit of protection from
Yes.
stuff.
And that's called the triangle of life
There
theory.
you go.
And honestly, you have to choose, because the government still claims to drop, cover, and hold, and going under things, but there is another theory that I think has a lot of validity to it. And like what Dale is saying is you sit next to a large object, because then if something falls, it hits the large object, and you're next to it, so it protects you, versus if the table gets hit, and you're underneath it, and it crumbles, and it could crunch you. So I would personally say, think about what you want to do, because there is science and there's evidence for both. And I personally would maybe do the triangle of life and go next to the bed, if I could get off of the bed safely.
'Cause I think the triangle of life has been proven by survivors.
It has, but government agencies are fighting it.
Yeah, well,
So-
government is government.
It is, yeah, and they are trying,
Not that I'm, anti-government.
yeah, no, and I said.
If they're listening.
And so, like I said, there's gonna be controversies on a lot of things. So you have both options and you gotta make your decision.
And I think that,
Like, or,
I was gonna say, I think that, it depends on the severity. If it's, if you're in danger of your, the structure of your home going down, triangle of life is the best thing to do, because that will save your life. But if it's just like a minor one, you're more in danger of things falling on you than everything going down, so.
and looking at any, okay, thank you. And Alan?
I read, I got this nice manual that I got from the earlier this year, but Triangle of Life, I was fascinated with this because we've been so cultured to this drop, cover, and hold. In the very first statement, most everyone who simply ducks and covers when buildings collapse are crushed to death. People who get under objects like desks or cars are crushed. Ah!
Yeah, and in schools and whatnot.
Is this part of the handouts you have?
This is not, because that's what I was gonna bring up both options, and let people decide. Because honestly, every FEMA, every state, every local, handout is gonna downplay the triangle of life. So I wanted to make sure you guys knew that. But the triangle of life is like a man who went and helped with scenarios after disasters, and he found like in schools, kids were crushed under desks, and then he found that there was this void. So like if this is the desk, and if it's crushed, if the person was here, he found that there was this triangle, of, this is the fallen stuff, but that there was this empty space in between, a major object. So it was like this empty space that a person could be in and be protected from. And so this is the practice I would do for my family if my kids could get it. But also I wanted to present what has been recommended by a lot of other people too. So again, make your choice, but you have both options. Okay, so indoors, outdoors, move to clearings. Okay, again, you don't really want to, depending on the severity, careful about running, but move to an area away from power lines, trees that could fall, vehicles and other things like that. Again, hard to do, but just have awareness when that's happening. If you're driving, what you do is you pull off of the road. It will be weird because you'll feel like all of a sudden you're like in an ocean and it'll be hard to register what's going on. So as soon as you can, pull off the road, turn off the car, put your emergency brake on, and depending on where you're at, stay in your vehicle is what they mostly recommend. And then when you come out, the shaking is done, because then the power lines and the trees and whatnot will most likely fall in after a minute when the shaking ends. In a classroom, again, triangle of life, teach your kids to be next to the tables and chairs, or just know they're going to be taught to go underneath the tables and chairs. And in every drill, they'll be taught to go under. But just tell them the real thing. No one's going to get mad at you for doing something different. And teach them how you want to. Now that you're educated, you can make that choice. If you're in a wheelchair, lock the wheels, cover your head and neck, and hold on. Remember, covering these internal organs. In a high rise, drop, cover, and hold. Once the shaking stops, you want to move out as quickly as possible. High rises are very dangerous with earthquakes. We do have different building codes than we did a long time ago, but because of the massive amount of windows and metal, they will take more structural hit than a home, actually, because a home made of wood, the wood with that natural God-given earth actually moves and is a little more malleable, whereas lots of metals are a lot more stiff. And they think of a tree in high wind, it kind of moves, if you've noticed, right? And that's similar to our house. And another thing about homes, it used to be the doorway was the safest place to be. That's not the case anymore. So do not run to a doorway. Do not run to exterior walls, because those are the ones that are going to take the greatest hits. Okay, and then in your workplace, do not use the elevator. That is not going to be working, and try to be calm. If it is a chaotic place, remind people, everyone, stay calm. You be the voice that needs to be heard to calm the situation down, to get people into a right mind and move, okay? In a store, this is like a small earthquake. A store is like a very dangerous place to be, right? Glass being thrown out at you. So I would run and move to the end aisles where there is less throwing of glass and items.
Stay away from the wine aisle.
The wine aisles will
Probably not
get
the
you. Lots of the pictures are from wine aisles.
Yeah.
They're literally like throwing missiles. Yeah. Near shoreline, this is critical. If you're ever visiting the shoreline, if you have any family along the west coast, after an earthquake, you book it and you run to high ground. You do not wait for a warning or a siren to tell you a tsunami is coming. That is what eventually will happen, is that warnings will go off. We have warnings all over all of our active volcanoes, which are 5 in the area. And then there's warnings along the west coast for sirens for tsunamis. But you do not wait. You go, because if it's a major earthquake, which will be around like a 9.0, is what they estimate with some time that will come, a tsunami will come. For us, if we're in this location, we won't probably really super be affected by it, but there will be tsunami in Lake Washington. It'll be small, but it'll hit the homes along that shoreline as well. So remember to just get out, to get to high ground and move. They have drills in schools in Oregon of running to high places, and the school actually built a high rise specifically for emergency evacuation for their students. So this is being practiced and shared all over the place.
Well, Jenna,
Yes.
for the sound, have you read anything about how high they think a tsunami would be in terms of, can you actually run enough to get to high ground, or do you need to get in your car?
They recommend to never go in your car
Is that right, to
Mhm.
run to high ground?
to run, unless the roads are clear. But after a large earthquake like that, the odds are the roads will not be clear. And that it'll create more, like just, yeah, no one's moving. So if you're out of your car and you can visually run, that's what they
And you
recommend.
actually could get to high enough ground for a tsunami coming off the sound?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, and there's evacuation routes. And if you are in the, I thought about putting it in the presentation, but I didn't because we're in this location. But if you are in or have family members or have a home on the coast, look up a website that, about evacuation route for tsunami or flooding in my area. They have mapped out evacuation routes all along the coast. So print that out and have that. But again, I didn't put it in this specific class. Okay, so earthquake hits. You do all of those things as best as you want to do, and these things as well. And then what you do is when the shaking stops, you wait for 60 seconds. Don't just get on out, because things need to finish falling into their resting place. After that time, you get out, and what you're going to do is examine, okay? You're going to examine yourself. Do I have head and neck injury, broken bones? Am I bleeding, lacerations? How am I able to function? You examine the people then in your closest proximity, take triage. And then, after you can take care of that major surrounding, you examine your home, your office place, wherever you're at, okay? And the biggest threat after an earthquake and possible tsunami, if you're on those places, is a fire. If there's any natural gas leaks, okay? So in here, it talks about inspecting your home for structural damage. You turn off the water at your main valve. You turn off your gas only if you smell natural gas, which smells like rotten eggs. If you hear hissing, smell rotten eggs, or you look at your dial and it's spinning more rapidly, you shut it off. If you need to know how to do that, I have a handout there. Grab it. Or on this last page of tools, I have a number that you can call to learn where your main shutoff valve is for water, or how to shut off your gas. The thing about gas, if you shut it off, the professionals have to come to turn it back on. But you do not want to have that gas, that poison, coming out, okay? And you do not light candles at that time, because that's an explosion waiting to happen with any possible gas leaks, okay? So you evaluate. It's all about evaluating in a calm, centered place, and then making the appropriate timing and plan.
Did you ever come across something that's more like kind of a checklist? Like after an earthquake, check your gas, or,
Yeah.
get your flashlight ready, or.
I have some of those over there. Yeah.
I knew you would.
Well, hopefully. Lucky on that one. So you assess, okay? You then, after you are in a safe environment and there are no immediate dangers, you then prepare for aftershocks. Aftershocks are going to come, no matter what. They might be small, but they might be large. So you prepare for another earthquake. Woohoo! You already got one down, just like bring it. And get in a good place and know they're coming. That's why if you're in a high rise, you move. Because multiple aftershocks in a high rise can be very damaging, okay? Then, if you need to leave your house, you leave a posting on your door. You get a bright yellow piece of paper, and excuse me, not on your door. A bright colored piece of paper and say, Jenna is okay. I went to meeting point A. And I put it somewhere maybe pre-planned in my house, where if my husband came home, or rescuers, or people from my church came to check on me, they'd see Jenna's okay. And okay, she's at that meeting place. We know she's okay and accounted for. Because what we're gonna start doing afterwards is checking in on friends and neighbors. How are you doing? Who needs help? Who's lost? Who's missing? Okay? But if you put this on your front door, that's a sign for looters that you're gone. Lootering would not happen immediately in the stores, yes, homes. It'll be in a couple of days, possibly, if you have that kind. Because people who are not prepared will want to survive and want to provide and have things for their family. So that will happen. That is reality. Now, if you're trapped in a location after an earthquake, do not yell. That you will breathe in a lot of toxic things and dust, which could then really inhibit your health. What you want to do is tap or make a noise. If you can, tap on a pipe, because that will vibrate up to somewhere, and you tap. And you make it as constant or intermittent to make it sound like a human and not like rain dropping, right? But people will hear those kinds of things after the dust has settled, okay? And if you need to, you can clap. But conserving your energy and staying positive in your morale will do you wonders. And you have faith, and you know people will come. And that's why if we take care of ourselves, we can go and help those other people. Okay? So make sure, again, to not really yell and scream, but make noise. Okay, if you're in a car post-earthquake, again, if your route includes overpasses or bridges, if it's a major earthquake, do not go over them. You have to have a different route. And that's where you have your evacuation plan. And it's in your 72-hour kit. And you pull it out, and you pull up your map that had highlighted of a different place to go. Or you had a friend, if you work over Seattle and all the time, and you have a friend that you've agreed in the emergency, can I bunk in with you if I need to, then you have a route to their house. But you have this plan already in place, so you don't have to think it through when you're already, adrenaline's running. You're in a state of fight or flight, which does change where the blood is going in your brain and the way you process decisions. So having as much done before gets you in a place of power during, okay? You could possibly call 511 for travel and road information, but odds are it probably won't go through. So again, you don't call 911 unless it is life or death, and even then, don't expect to get through, okay? But don't call it for broken bones. Don't call it for even lacerations that you think you could handle and could be under control. And again, really, just know that you're probably on your own, okay? You have in your first aid kit, hopefully, a radio, Nova radio, okay? Most emergency supply backpacks have that. You turn that on because that will give you updates. It'll give you locations of emergency shelters, medical aid stations, and the extent of the damage. It'll be your eyes when you can't see. Okay, if you can, text your family and loved ones that you're okay. Short texts, keep them brief. Jenna, okay, at church. Kids, all okay, at church. Short, as little bandwidth as possible. And texts are more likely to go through than phone calls. So you text your ones in the immediate area. If those don't go through, we have Grandma Jones in Utah that I will text her. And Wes will, my husband will text her. And so she will know and be able to assess and let us know. Wes is stuck at hospital. Okay, so I have an idea, okay, what's going on. But that's, again, part of your pre-planning, so you're ready in the time. Okay, if you have kids at school or daycare, childcare, things like that, beforehand you've already asked, what is your plan for emergency? What do you have available? And then they will most likely be able to set up communications to know when you come and get your kids. But if it's very extensive, know that they are handling that situation as much as possible. You need to handle your immediate situation. For you to hike 3 days to get to the school, if it's a couple miles away or 20 miles away, when the people or first responders in that area are there, it's not the most effective thing you could be doing at the time. And I know we want to be with our loved ones. Okay? Following a disaster, if it's a major quake, you will lose your power, your water, and your gas for an extended amount of time. Remember, the government says at least 2 weeks. They don't want to instill fear. They want to instill a reality. At least 2 weeks, guys. We got to be prepared for a past 2 weeks. Don't rely on professionals. They told us that this is coming. And do what you can with what you have. And take that to the Lord. Remember the fishes and the loaves. The Lord has power to expand. And when we are prepared and we've done what we can ask Him to expand our supplies, and He will. Okay? Remember to share. Honestly, the giving of the Good Samaritan in an event like this just keeps, it bubbles goodness from around us and bubbles up in our community. It will be hard because there will be some fear instincts. If I share with you, I won't have enough for my kids. Remember to have that faith of what power comes from giving, and that the Lord will take care of you as well. Okay, being aware then of looters and marauders, creating a neighborhood's watch, communing with your neighborhood, get rotations going if you need to, and have men outside 24/7 down the road if we need to, okay? With Hurricane Harvey, within 4 days, there was looting within neighborhoods, okay? So that's pretty quick, realistically thinking of today in this day and age. But think about it. If people don't have any food, the food they have will last a couple days, but after that, they really won't have anything, and the stores will be cleared. Don't go to the store. If you hear an earthquake or something is coming, you could possibly go, if, you know, we won't get that much of a warning, but another natural disaster, if you get days, like with Harvey, they had a day warning pretty much, from what I read. And so they were able to start their wash and go to the store and get last things, but the store was insane. And then some people weren't able to get back home because they cut it too close. So have what you need. And then you don't need to enter the chaotic realm of, oh my gosh, should I go to the store? I don't know if I'll be able to make it back in time. But that's not really relevant to an earthquake. Okay, so now, products to have for this kind of situation. For securing the home, these is what it would look like, water heater seismic straps. You gotta make sure you have two, top and bottom. And again, I have them all listed here, and I can give you a copy via email, so you can just copy and paste in your browser. Putty, look at, so these high things from these top shelves, instead of being like bombs and glasses being thrown at you, they won't be. They're in a safe place, okay? Food, so again, at least 2 weeks. I would say at least 2 weeks of easier meals, and then after that, at least 3 to 6 months of long-term food storage. If you can, longer than that. So we're in a place to share with others. Easy meals would be something like this, and I have it down there, freeze-dried food. All you have to do is have hot water. You open it up, you have your alternative fuel source, because you won't have your stove. You boil some, put it in a packet, and then you eat it. You can buy things like this and have at least 2 weeks for your family. Because if this is taken care of, think of how much calmer you'll be, and you'll be in a place to be present and be at peace with others. Okay? Packaged food to last 30 years. We are currently doing a group buy, which is a phenomenal deal, and we need more orders in to make sure the truck has enough to make it worth it to come up. But it's half off, and this food is sealed for 30 years. It comes Mylar bagged like this. All the oxygen is out and the air is out. You can buy it just like that, and you just have to watch out, mice can chew through it. Or you buy it in buckets with this Mylar bag in it, and you store those. I'd recommend the buckets. It's a fantastic deal. I have the website there. You log on, you look at what you want to buy, you call, you place your order, and then November 18th at this church, you come and pick up your buckets and you go and store them, and you have them. And they can sit there for 30 years, but you've got them.
So do they have also the mail things?
They do not have this. They only have the long-term 30 years. This, I give you a link, and you can also find it at Costco lots of times. Okay, for cooking then, I'd recommend everyone have a butane stove, because that is safe to cook inside. Your grill and things like that, you gotta be outdoors. Now, if it's like this kind of weather, if it's any time in a cold, rainy season, that will be more stressful. If you have this, you can cook inside. People have this all the time and use them for power outages, and it's easy. You have a go-to. These cans of butane last 5 to 7 years unopened. So you just have them. They're there, easy to use. Won't be a very long and sustaining source of fuel, but for initial 2 weeks, I'd recommend everyone have 2 weeks prepared of that kind of cooking.
Yeah, you can actually cook with propane, but you've got to have an airflow going through your house. I cooked on a propane stove for 3 years in a row in my house. But we had, we had a way to just crack a window, crack a door, and but you can do it. You just have to be aware of that.
Very cautious, okay.
It's not as life-threatening as they say, unless you're in a very small room with absolutely airtight.
Okay.
Yeah, I do, absolutely no problem, so.
Okay.
Just
Well,
good
thank
to
you.
know,
Yeah.
in case you don't
need
have a
to do that.
propane, just know
If
that
you have
you
your
could
grill.
use your camping stuff,
Yeah,
just get a little bit of airflow going through there.
and make sure, yeah. Thank you for sharing that, thank you. Another thing that is sustainable and would last for fuel for forever really is the sun. Okay, so it's a sun oven that I would recommend, that it's very compact, so storing is great. It's more expensive, it's $157. So that's a more expensive option. For babies and kids, make sure you have extra formula, pureed food, like canned food, things on hand for your babies to eat, okay? Alright, moving on. Water, another life necessity. It's recommended you have at least 1 gallon per person per day for 2 weeks. So that is 14 gallons per person, okay? At least, because this water is going to be your drinking, it's going to be your hand washing, your body washing, your cooking. It's going to be your life source. They are finding that when people have to evacuate a place, it's typically because they don't have enough water stored. That's really like the crux of it for people. So there's different options of what you can do. If you have a large family, I'd recommend one of these 55-gallon barrels. And you have to have a wrench and a little, well, you don't have to have the siphon, but you do have to have some tools to open it. But you can put the water in there and you've got it, and it's a large amount of water. Some people say you gotta treat it and you gotta rotate it, things like that. I find with my research that it's okay if you don't, and it'll be okay. And
It's not gonna taste very good.
it might not taste, and then what you do is the water with the lack of oxygen, you just put it between 2 buckets and shuffle it back and forth to introduce oxygen again to it.
And then you put that Country Time lemonade that you stored.
There we go, Country Time lemonade at Sherry's house, everyone. So that's an easy way to do it. These stackable containers are great too, and you can use them camping. And they're 5 or 6 gallons, and so they're a little easier to carry if you need to move out. They also have tall jerry cans that are 5 to 6 gallons, which are easier to carry and to move out. And the source I got, yeah, for those stopped carrying them, so I didn't put those on, I'm sorry. Then for purification, you need a purification method. I'd recommend, this is a very inexpensive way to go. It's a life straw, and it does, I think, 250 gallons of water, and have at least one for every one of your family members. You can keep them in your 72-hour kit, because that can give you clean water wherever you go. A long-term solution for water would be something like a Berkey, which is very expensive. It's more like, well, it's like a couple $100, $200 to $400, depending on what size. We have one and we use it all the time for our family and we enjoy it. But this is what I'd recommend. Life straw, stackable water, a large barrel if you need it, but having at least, remember, at least this amount. If you look at stories throughout time, like the Titanic, right, and then that movie that came out about the Chile mine, people don't put in the minimum amount at times. That's a pattern for human nature, that we don't put in what is realistic if we actually had to use those. If they had enough lifeboats on the Titanic, it wouldn't be as disastrous. People could have gone on their lifeboats. If there was enough food for those Chilean miners who were stuck for a very long time, there was really only enough, I think, for one individual. I'm gonna totally remember the details wrong. But if they had stored at least what they were supposed to, you could manage a lot easier, okay? So try not to fall into that human error. I've done it. I put my cheapest thing in my 72-hour kit at times. Like, oh, then I won't have to buy a more expensive one. And I'm like, really? Come on, Jenna. Like, so putting in the money now and the time now, an ounce of prevention is like a pound of cure. These $20 to have like real food that can last for 5 years in your 72-hour kits is expensive maybe at the time, but boy, those bars will make all the difference if we need them down the road. Okay, another aspect of life that we don't focus on all the time is sanitation. That is a key to survival. The Red Cross has done studies that more disease, sickness, and illness after disaster is due to poor sanitation conditions. Sometimes we have food and water, but we don't realize we're still human beings. We're still gonna poop. We're still gonna have all the functions we have now. We're still gonna have a menstrual cycle. Okay? In all major disasters journals I read, sanitary napkins, pads, tampons, those were one of the most needed and necessary things. Hormones change. Okay. Keep snoozing.
Keep snoozing.
Thank you. Those are the things that all shelters need the most, because hormones change in a fight or flight situation that happens in your body. People go into labor more, women do, preterm labor, and also people will start their periods more. And so all of a sudden, we have a lot of women on their periods and no supplies. That was a huge problem with Harvey. Huge. Tampons and pads are considered paper products. They don't expire. Keep them dry, keep them in a bucket, keep them ziplocked. You can use them for wound care as well. Another solution that I found that is reusable is a menstrual cup for women. So what it is you insert it at the vagina and it catches the blood. And then you empty it and you wash it with clean water and soap, and then it's reusable. There are different sizes, post-pregnancy and pre-pregnancy for women. So take note in that. But if you have any daughters in the vicinity, or if you're a woman, I would recommend you have that, and some tampons and pads for sure. Okay, now for soap, I kind of skipped over again. For soap, bars of soap will last a really long time. Those are fantastic. You can use them for hand washing, body washing, and wound care if you need to. This is something I found that's pretty versatile. It's called Dr. Bronner's Pure Castile Soap, and it's in your link. It's probably $18 for this size of 32 ounces. So it's an investment, but what you do is you can dilute it. You don't have to use it full strength, and you can use it for practically anything. Body, hair, dishes, laundry, and it has a long-term shelf life if it's left unopened. So I have these stored in buckets, and again, just keep at least 2 weeks if that's where you need to start, and that's something easy you can share with others, and it will be vital for your own home. For a toilet plan, what you for sure need is having rolls of durable garbage bags. That was another one that was highly needed in all shelters during emergency events. Durable garbage bags, like the rolls from Costco. Have at least like maybe 2 boxes of those on hand. So some options for toilet, what you can do is you empty, the water will be off. One of the things post-earthquake is you're going to turn off that water valve, okay? And again, instructions over there, how you do that, because you don't know then what water is going to be coming down the pipe. And you don't turn it back on till you hear on your radio that the water's safe, because they'll tell you. And then you have your water heater, which has 50 gallons of water in it, and you have the water in there. But you empty your toilet bowl, and you put a garbage bag in the bowl, and so then you go to the bathroom there, and you have a lid to cover it, to cover smells and keep things down, okay? Men, I would recommend just go out and you have a location that they go outside, so that they don't utilize, unless you have to utilize for feces in the home. I wouldn't use it, so that you can maximize sanitation there. And then,
Do you mind if I add one thing?
Yeah.
I found the coolest little pop-up tent for a porta potty. So like they have these 5-gallon buckets that have little lids on there, and you can either buy their bags or you can have your own bags, and you can have the chemicals. And it can go in this little pop-up tent that stores. Do you have it?
Oh, no, I don't have that exact one.
Pop-up tent. It's stored. It's like an inch thick, and I've got a hoop like this. And it pops up, and it's like your own little outhouse. It could be outside.
Yeah.
So anyway, I thought I'd tell you, it's very inexpensive. Found it on Amazon. Yeah, and with that bucket. I love that bucket.
Yeah, thank you. So another roll per person per week, okay? So that toilet paper is comforting. We appreciate our toilet paper. But what you can do to make the toilet paper stretch is have, especially if you have kids who have a harder time with self-control, then you pre-cut 3 squares. So then they have a pre-amount of how much they take. And then you have a squirt water bottle, which I forgot to bring, but what you do is you sit down, you go to the bathroom, and then you use your squirt water bottle to squirt your behind. It's like a bidet. Clean it off as much as possible, and if you have gloves, you can label left and right, and scrub your bottom and squirt, and then you pat yourself dry with a little bit of toilet paper, you wash your gloves, you hang them up to dry, and think that will last a long time. And honestly, if you run out of toilet paper, take old cotton t-shirts and rip them up. And then you have cotton t-shirts you can use. You can wash and sun dry, and you can keep using those. And by using the water bottle to rinse off any extra feces, it's minimizing how dirty your toilet paper, how much you need, or if you're using the cloth t-shirts, okay? So that is a easy plan to instill during that time. All right, also remember to store extra diapers and wet wipes and adult diapers if you are in the care of an elderly. That would be hard if you don't have, we have a wonderful family member who needs adult diapers. Make sure you have those on hand. That would be much harder to deal with than kids, where you can wrap around towels more if you need to. Okay, so that's sanitation. For health and shelter, some other miscellaneous things. The 72-hour kit, again, I gave you a link there, stealthangelsurvival.com, had wonderful combinations of things, like including a toilet, including some good quality food and freeze-dried food and radio and things like that. So look at that website and see what works for your family. And then I talked about, again, the additions you want to make sure you have to that 72-hour kit. Something I didn't mention before was running shoes in there. If you're commuting to work, you wear your work shoes or high heels. Think about that, walking a couple miles. Okay, so make sure you have old running shoes in there and a pair of socks. Okay. Solar powered and crank radio and charger. This, like, you'll find radios that are solar powered and can be cranked with electricity and can take batteries. So you got a couple of things covered. And then you can charge your cell phone in here. I would recommend everyone have something like that so you can charge your phone. Because if you are able to communicate with loved ones, that will make a huge difference. And that's easy to do. That's very inexpensive. Another thing is to make sure you have a tent. If your home, it's not habitable, you need a tent. You can find very inexpensive tents if you need to financially, but it's huge to have that tent. And then something that I think is of value financially is a quality sleeping bag. This is one that's a military sleeping bag, and it's got 4 different layers. So it has a summer layer, a winter, summer layer, winter layer, this bivy that's waterproof, this Gore-Tex, so it's like insurance on your sleeping bag, if you're sleeping outside, if you're camping, anything. You know, sleeping bags get wet and you're miserable. The night is long, and sickness can come in pretty easily, especially if it's longer than our camping trip. And then it comes in a carrying case. So, they're more expensive. I gave you the link, but again, I think it's of value. And it's weight and gold, especially if you have young kids you're trying to keep warm as well.
Jenna, are those the used military ones?
There can be used and there can be new.
Because I bought some used military ones, and they were $50 each for the whole trio set. It was
Yeah.
phenomenal. Looked like brand new.
Yeah, perfect, yeah. The military, they mark them differently. I can't remember, there's different levels of used and new, so then they can correlate with pricing. So, yeah, if you want to send me the link for $50, the cheaper one, then if you have it, then I can send that out to the group. Other key things to have: shovel, gloves, rope, flashlight, your extra batteries, right? Road maps, a tent. Again, updated warm clothing for your family. Practice without the heater on in your home. How does this feel? Okay, what do we need? What kind of socks do we have for the kids or for myself? Any needed medication, especially for the elderly. Any life-sustaining tools. that anyone needs. What do you have in plan and what do you have in place? Look at, if there's anything in particular that I haven't covered, Google it, because someone else has thought of it. And and there's so many answers to your questions. It's just, I find, it's asking the question that's key. Because the information's out there, it's phenomenal what we have available to us, but we have to know how to ask and what questions to ask. Sherry?
One thing that I learned last year, that maybe everybody else already knew this, but I thought it was pretty cool, with all the heavy rains, we were having flooding problems in our basement, and when I was trying to figure out what to do, now they have sandbags that are filled with like a special kind of like diaper gel, but you can buy a pack of 50 sandbags that fits in a box this big, and then you just lay them out, and the water activates like the diaper gel, and they fill up.
And then how do you dispose of them afterwards?
They actually dry up and they're reusable.
Fantastic. I was not aware of that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and I just bought them on Amazon, and I thought
Do you know the
that
name
would
of
be
them?
a great addition to a
Yeah,
storage.
because sandbags are fantastic, but then you have to just, it's a mess to get.
No, I have a couple that seem like they kind of leak, but then
Yeah.
once the water goes out, they just shrink down. It's like an empty
Yeah,
cloth bag,
yeah,
so.
that's fantastic. Okay.
I just
So,
found them on Amazon. I
Look
just
them up.
searched sandbag or something, I don't know.
Maybe reusable sandbags
Yeah.
or things like that.
Yeah.
And search around. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you everyone for sharing what tools and experience you have. That's fantastic, and that's how we help each other with what we've experienced. Okay.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Tina, what do you recommend for storing all your buckets? I've heard right outside the house or in the garage or I mean, where's the best place to keep them?
If they have food in them, I would not recommend storing them in your garage if you park your car in the garage, because you don't want any toxic fumes coming into your food. If it has food on it, you don't want it directly on the cement because it actually can absorb the moisture. So put down some plywood first and then your buckets. If your garage is a storage area and not necessarily fluctuating in big heat temperatures, because again with the food, you don't want to toast it in your garage. But then that could be a safe place because it's probably easier to get to if things collapse down. So I would recommend assessing your home. Food, you want to store it away from light, away from chemicals like cars, and away from moisture.
And chemicals like soap
So, yeah.
and.
Yeah, bleach, all the
It's a
household
long time in
chemicals.
my
too,
childhood
things like
eating
that.
saltines that tasted like
Mm.
detergent.
That sounds
Just have a great
awesome.
memory of that.
Perfect. So, yes, food, you wanna be more careful of where you place it. And then other things that, wouldn't, like this, where you just need to keep it dry and whatnot, I would place it in a place where you could easily exit. So, like if your storeroom is in like the center of your house, that would maybe be hard to get it and grab it and go. So really it goes case by your house and your configuration, but just run through a scenario. And then move it if you need to.
So I'm confused, I thought the Mylar bag was impermeable to air, and how can it absorb odors such as the fumes of a car? I don't understand that.
It can still go through the buckets,
The bucket,
uh-huh.
Mylar.
and they still recommend, I haven't personally had food that has been contaminated by those odors, but everywhere I've read, they recommend to not put it anywhere in your garage if your car is in your garage. Because I'm sure, even though this is I'm sure some chemicals, maybe not oxygen goes through, but other chemicals that are not necessarily on the oxygen part can go through.
And they do go rancid too. I have had rancid rice, rancid beans, rancid peas, even sealed, even with the oxygen thing, even in the bucket. Unsealed the bucket, taken it out, cooked it, and been like,
Yeah.
so they're not lifelong. I mean, nothing is. Everything that's alive is alive, right?
Yeah.
So again,
Yeah. And
your best
rotating
case
it
scenario
and-
is sooner as opposed to later, but on the later end.
Yeah, and keeping an eye on it and checking on it. And remembering, yeah, like you do it and maybe you do these things when you go home, but then you gotta check on it and you gotta keep it up. And what needs to change? Have you changed sizes? Has someone else in your family changed sizes? Check on the food and things like that. Thank you very much. Okay, and so the last few things from Harvey, I threw in a couple Again, I'm gonna read this from like, I took them from their journals. Everyone needs grills or propane tanks or butane stoves, water bottles, trash bags, disposable plates and cutlery. That was also something, they didn't have places to put their food, okay? And when they donated a lot of food, all the shelters needed, plates and cups. And so even thinking about like the plastic ones are the ones you could reuse with that. Dish soap, hand soap, tampons, flashlights, headlamps, batteries, baking supplies. Remember, you're gonna be baking more from scratch after a while, okay? The value, they mentioned again, the difference of having a good grab-and-go backpack and 3 sets of clothes you would actually wear and that dry well were huge. She invested in some good things, good quality Columbia brand, Patagonia, things like that, and they made all the difference. Good water, good rain boots. It made all the difference for her and her family.
Jenna, one other thing. So I store vitamins. I figure a vitamin gives us all the essentials and everything I can put and give to my kids is a plus on top,
Yeah.
which is my current philosophy anyway, right?
Yeah.
Like they take vitamins every day anyway.
Yeah.
But I do store vitamins so
Yeah.
that you have the essentials.
Yeah, thank you. Another thing she mentioned is clearing out the junk in our life. She found that so much of our life revolves around junk. When they were demucking all these houses and seeing all these things in the front lawn that are just gonna be landfill, and think about that, a city disposing of trash after emergency is mind-boggling. But clearing your life so that we're in a centered place now. So we have less junk now, and then in any added stressful situation, we can move with clarity and we have less things that get in the way. Owning good camping gear and quality supplies. She loved the cry once philosophy, buy good quality and then you have less, but you have one you love. Having an organized working pantry and knowing how to cook from scratch was huge because you won't have boxed and freezer meals available. Comfort foods made a difference. We Mylar bag our Halloween candy. Now's a great time to take any extra candy and things you have and put it away, and then you've got it. Keep it careful with mice again, but they make a difference. Natural health remedies for health are vital. You're on your own after a disaster. I have more classes that go into depth about that. This class, I couldn't add that. If you want more information with that, I can send you links or start looking it up on your own too, okay? But again, you're gonna be the doctor and the ones around you. Let's see. Again, lootering started within 4 days. One store opened, it was dangerous to go at times. So have what you need so you don't have to go out for survival things. And another thing from reading a lot of it was having a prioritized evacuation list. After an earthquake, if you need to leave your home due to a possible fire or anything, if you have a list in your 72-hour kit, I grab my external hard drive that has some pictures and has documents on it. And then I grab this and that. And it's, okay, I can follow a list in a stressful situation. But when people are frantic, they're gonna grab everything and it's gonna slow them down to effectively. She did say people who did not evacuate soon got less safe shelters. Those who were ready to go on buses, evacuation buses, were able to go to shelters that had more supplies and were able to better sustain people. And so being ready when they needed to go made a difference. Okay, so we're gonna start, again, just rehashing it all. There's so much you can do before anything happens, okay? We're in a peaceful place, relatively speaking. Those things, 72-hour kit, what you're gonna choose to do, which philosophy you're gonna choose, okay? Teach it to your kids, plan it out. Post-earthquake, prepare to be centered, help others, and help will come to you. You have your tools, you know what you'll need to do to survive for the necessities of life, for food and water and health and shelter. And if you have those things, you go forward and everything will be as it should be, and it'll be okay. And psychologically speaking, it'll make the world a difference, okay? And then, now, as I close, I have over here a bunch of other specific topics that we can't go in depth with everything, right? But if you don't know to grab, and I didn't print a ton of everything, but If we wanna make more copies, we can make more at the library. So I have fire safety, if you don't know how to effectively put out a fire. Utilities, if you don't know how to turn off your utilities. Securing your water heater. Your home hazardous hunt. Here's the list of the 2 weeks ready, gathering your information. If you don't know what kind of information to gather. Here's the list that someone mentioned before of like what to do. This is how you build your kits. This is what you do to make a plan. This is what you do after the plan, okay? Personal contact numbers, disaster tips for mobility disabilities, children, deaf, psychological, emotional needs, people with special medical needs, people with visual disabilities, pet preparedness. If you have a pet, it's probably typically a part of your family. How are you going to prepare for them? And that's also in your packet as well. Sheltering in place. If there is toxic things, the earth will move and things will come up. We have a plant, a nuclear plant down, can't remember which city, in Washington. When things shake and things could break and things could leak. And so how could you shelter in your place, in your home if you needed to? So go around and shop to get what you need for your specific situation and have that in your kit. And then like I said, please go home and act on it. And make the changes, make any tools, and if you need to ask a question, Google it and find out what questions, or send me an email. But there's so many resources out there, and I just hope that you all were able to receive one gift that will change and improve your plan for the future, and that we can pass it on to others and be a more aware, awake, and prepared community. So thank you all for coming very much.